ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this episode of insulin calculation. Today we are back with insulin part 2 as we promised last time. So we will see if we'll be able to do all the calculations, but without wasting much of your time, let's get to the board. So I'll start by telling you the different types of insulin that are there. So insulin basically is classified into four types of insulin. The first one we call the rapid acting insulin. This is the rapid acting insulin. The second one is called short acting insulin. The third one is intermediate acting insulin, and the last one is called the long acting insulin. So let's break them down. Let's give examples of each, and we'll talk about their onset of action, when do they peak, and also where the duration of action of these insulin that I just explained here. So let's start with the first, rapid acting. Rapid acting insulin examples, of course, include Lispro. Okay, these are generic name of the drugs. We're not using the brand company or company names. It's got aspartate or aspart insulin, but also glutathione. So these are examples of the short-acting insulins. This short-acting insulin, it starts working about 10 to 15 minutes of injection. So this is called the onset of action is simply between 10 to 15 minutes. When you just get an injection, that onset starts working within this period of time. Then this insulin, of course, it peaks about 1 hour to 2 hours. Then it peaks. This insulin can stay in the body for up to 5 hours. So this is called the duration of action of the rapid acting insulin. Let's go to another drug here. It's called the short acting. The examples of short acting, they also call it regular insulin. The other brand companies, of course, includes the Actrapid. These are what we call, it's called a regular insulin. These are short acting insulin. Okay, so basically this one, when does it start working? Basically the onset of action for the rapid acting or short acting insulin is basically about 30 to 1 hour. So 30 minutes it starts working. This is how this one starts. When does it peak? So basically this one, of course, it peaks a bit quite later. You find that this peaks in about they begin to peak about 4 hours. The peak is about 4 hours with this one, and then it works up to about 8 hours. So it can work up to 8 hours. So that's the duration of action. So the average peak time about 4 hours. It peaks, then goes up to 8 hours. That's about the short acting insulin. The next one, of course, we've got the intermediate acting insulin. These one, of course, they simply got the short acting insulin. They added some zinc sulfate, the zinc crystals, so they came up with the intermediate. So intermediate acting examples, of course, we've got the NPH insulin, of course, we've got also the isofen. These are the examples, of course, of this article, the intermediate acting. When does it start working? This starts working a bit later, about an hour. So the onset of action for this one, about an hour to 2 hours. So start working. The peak, it peaks a bit later. It peaks about, the peak of this one about 8 hours to about 8 to 12 hours. That's when it peaks. So with this insulin, so I would say 8 to 10 hours it peaks. It's able to stay in the system up to 16 hours. Of course, others, of course, can go up to 18 hours. That's the duration for this one. The duration of action for the the intermediate acting insulin. We're going to the last. This is called long-acting insulin. This is known as long-acting insulin. So examples of this are what we have. We've got the Determa. So Determa, we've got the Glargine. These are examples. So Glargine, Determa, these are examples of what we call long-acting insulin. These ones, they are very long-acting. The onset, of course, starts about 3 to 4 hours. That's when they start working, basically. With the only one which peaks here is Glargine does not peak. Determa peaks depending on the concentration. Let me say again. Determa, the Glargine does not peak. There's not any peak, doesn't peak. But with the Determa, peak only occurs depending on the concentration. So high concentration, then the peak, of course. But basically, these usually they all don't peak, basically. So the onset starts from there. This one can go up to 24 hours. Others even go up to 30 hours. So these are long-acting insulin, and you only give them what called once per day. So let me put it in easier terms. You can see with rapid-acting insulin and short-acting insulin, these insulins are given with food or before meals. These are what called postprandial or say meal insulins. These we call them meal insulins. With the NPH as well as long-acting insulin, these are called basal insulins. These you give them not based on the meal, but the one which is based on the meal or which with meal or before meals are these ones. So rapid-acting insulin, we said, is very short-acting. Because the onset of action, of course, is very quite short, meaning that you can take this one together with a meal or just immediately after a meal or before a meal, just a few minutes. With the other one, like short-acting, you inject insulin first, then after 30 minutes, then you eat, because the onset is 30 minutes for the short-acting insulins. These insulins, rapid and short, can be given with meals, okay? So the better one, of course, here is what called rapid-acting insulin, because rapid-acting insulins can easily mimic the body physiological insulin secretion. So they are close to the way your body secretes insulins when you eat or between meals. Then for the short-acting is not that closer. So the best regimen, of course, is when you're using the rapid-acting insulin. But I will tell you now, of course, with these and others, how you use them, basically. So let's go to the next page. So here I've got a simple aspect to show you the normal sugar levels, okay, for the patient. What are the normal sugar levels? And when we say this patient is diabetic or diabetic patient, what do we mean? So here's what we have here. So I have with me normal sugar levels. We call them into two categories. There's what we call fasting sugar levels, and also after meals. We call them postprandial sugar levels. That is after a meal, 2 hours basically. That's what the best time we like using that. Now here's the thing. The normal sugar levels for a patient must be average in this range, 70 to 100 milligrams per deciliter. So I'm using the milligram per deciliter. If I want to convert to what called millimole per liter, you simply divide the values that I have here by 18. So you divide by 18 here and by 18 here, then you convert your milligram per deciliter into millimoles per liter. Don't be confused. I'm using this. I'm using UK and American units, because I was born in America. I'm just joking, kidding. But here's the thing, basically. So this is after meals. The sugar levels for a person who is not diabetic, they should be less than 140 milligrams per deciliter. Then we come to a patient who, this is called a diabetic patient with diabetes. What do you see here? The sugar levels, fasting sugar levels in this patient are greater than what? 125 milligrams per deciliter. So you see, it's just a diabetic patient. Then the what called the after meal sugar levels are going as far as 200 milligrams per deciliter for this patient who is diabetic. Okay, but that's how basically I want you to know that. Then this is what I want to know. The goal of therapy of insulin use. People who are diabetic patients, we don't just go rapidly reduce their sugar levels to normal patients. Our aim is not to reduce their sugars to normal people, because we are concerned about them going to hypoglycemia, which is more lethal and delicate than the hyperglycemia itself. So our target for people who are diabetic, for target sugar levels for them should be in this range, 90 to 130 milligrams per deciliter. That means before they eat. So when they get sugar levels in the morning, when they wake up from the bed, before they eat the breakfast, their sugar levels, they must be in this range, 90 to 130 milligrams per deciliter. That's our target for these people who are diabetics. But after they eat, 2 hours after meals, when we check their sugar levels 2 hours after meals, their blood sugar levels must be less than what we call 180 milligrams per deciliter. That's how it's supposed to be. So this is basically what I want you to know about this part. Then we'll end here for today, and next time we'll look at now the calculations in details. Oh, God bless you. Hello ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is the last part now, calculation now, which you've been waiting for. So basically, it won't take much of your time. I'll start with here. These are the different types of regimens that are there for a patient. It's what you call basal bolus, premixed, mixed split, and also multiple injections. So what we mean by this? So when you say basal, basically these are the patients. Basal insulin is the insulin that the body secretes when you are not eating. It's does not peak, it's simply constant levels. It maintains your insulin levels to be on the normal levels throughout the day so that there's no hypo or hyperglycemia in your body. So the patient that needs just basal only, when their fasting sugar levels are high, while the after meal sugar levels are normal, those patients, they only need the basal regimen. We go to basal bolus. It's a mixed one. This basal bolus, you're giving a patient a basal, which I've just from explaining, plus also the insulin that are needed with meals, okay, which is meal insulin. That's what we call bolus, basal bolus aspect. Bolus basically is after meals or meal insulins. We come to what we call premixed. Premixed insulins are those that already mixed. There's what we call a short acting plus and maybe plus what we call a bolus, a basal insulin. This can be, of course, different. They can be longer acting. So usually the which are available is what we call the 70-30, which of course is what we call short acting insulin. Plus there's what we call NPH. These are what we call, they come in as 70-30. There's also what we call 75-25, and there's also what we call 50. So these are what we call already mixed insulins. The patients that are getting these regimens, these are given basically 2 times a day. 1 injection in the morning and another injection, of course, in the evenings around 18 hours. So that's what we give. These are called premixed insulins. We have also another one called mixed split, where the patient is getting, of course, the same regimen which I've just from explaining here, the mixed one, but in this case they're getting them as separate. It's not the already mixed drug, but they're getting, let's say, Actrapid plus Protafen, but they're getting a BD regimen, but that's in a split or in a different or separated forms of insulins. Then the last one is called multiple injections. This one, of course, basically we dose the patient based on how often they have their meals in a day. It's called multiple injections. So this one, of course, is a bit bad because, patients get a lot of injections. When you eat a lot, you're gonna get a lot of it. That's the thing. So let's start with calculation now here. So how do you start the patient on insulin? This is the patient who's come in naive, of course, with glycated hemoglobin, maybe say greater than 10, of course. This is what called A1C, which is known as glycated hemoglobin of the patient is about greater than 10%. You may start the patient on insulin, but how do you start patient on insulin? How do you consider starting a patient on insulin? We consider the weight of the patient. Let's assume we've got patient X here. This patient weighs 80 kgs. Okay. For type 2 diabetes, we are starting the patient at this one. So let's say it's patient type 2 at 0.2 units per kg in 24 hours. This is what we call a 24-hour dose. Type 2, we are starting on a lower dose because they already have what we call a residue. Beta cells are still there. Some beta cells are still there, so we don't have to give them too much insulin, otherwise they might go into hypoglycemia. Then type 1, we're starting them at 0.5 milligrams. 0.5 units, international units, per kg per day. So we are simply multiplying 0.5 units times the weight of the patient. This gives us the total dose of a patient in 24 hours. So that's what we start with. I said in type 2, we're starting a lower dose. But here's the things. This is not always fixed. There are other things that we consider factors to start the patient at the dose of the patient we're starting with. For example, people who are obese or the people who are obese patients, we might start them at a bit higher doses, from 0.6 to about 1 milligram, from 0.6 to about 1 unit per kg per day. Those might get higher doses. Okay, so it depends. Those who are pregnant as well, also they might need higher doses. So the starting part, this is simply weigh easily and then begin to titrate the patient based on their needs of insulin. So let's assume this patient, of course, we start with type 1, or of course more type 1 diabetes. This is the patient who weighs 80 kg. So we'll get this 80 kg of the patient times 0.5, which will give us what? 40. This is the same, in short, units for 24 hours. So this patient requires the day dose for this patient. Each they need is how many? 40 units. To make it work easier for you, when you see units in kgs, what you can do is that you just multiply, you just get the patient weight of the patient, divide by 2. This gives you what we call patient's daily insulin requirement for this patient. Just divide by 2, simple, as you can see here, it's because at 0.5. So we have the 80 kgs here. How do you give the patient now? Let's come here now. So this patient requires how many? 40 units in 24 hours. When you are starting the patient on insulin, you want to first start them on separate drugs. You want to go or multiple injections per se, because you want to see how much of insulin they will need, the patient will be needing. So you can't just use a mix already pre-mixed. That won't be best way, because that one you can't easily regulate or control the patient regimen. So what you do basically here, if you're using what you call the multiple injections, you get this dose of the patient, which is this is called basal bolus multiple injections. You get the 40 units of the patient, divide them into 4 equal parts. 4 equal parts. So you divide this one by simply 4. You get how many? 10 units. So you have 10 units here. Okay, another 10 units here. Another 10 units here. Another 10 units here. So you see, so these units here you see here, these ones will be given before. If you're using, since we're using here, we're using that one. You're using, if you're using the rapid acting insulin, you can take just a patient just immediately before or after meals or with meals, because those are rapid acting. The onset is 10 to 15 minutes. But if you're using what you call the Actrapid, which is what you call the short acting insulin, you might inject the patient first. After 30 minutes, the patient might eat. So basically what we say, before the patients get the insulin, food must be ready. They should have food. They should have food ready. So that's what we do. So here, they'll be getting 10 units before meals. Okay, so here's what you got. Breakfast, 10 units they get. Again here at lunch, 10 units they get. And this one is what you call dinner or supper. And then these 10 units here, the last one here, will be what you call the basal insulin. This will be called what you call, they can either use what you call NPH or glargine. That will be given at 23 hours. Or don't want to give it early. If you give it early, patient might have what you call late night hypoglycemia. So 23 hours is the best time to give, so that it can reach up to in the morning time. That's why we give at 23 hours. So you see here, these are the 30 units will be given. These are called the meal. They'll be called meal insulins, and then the last 10 units will be used in as at night for this patient. This is how you start the patient like that. Let's go to another patient. Okay, we have got another patient. We have another patient here. Assuming that this is a patient that you are a stable patient, now you want to put this patient on a pre-mixed regimen. Okay, this patient weighs the patient weighs 60 kgs. Okay, and then what you do basically, as I said, divide by 2, you get what you call 30 units of this patient. So this patient requires how many? 30 units in 24 hours. So if you want to give what you call a pre-mixed, we said pre-mixed, they come in as what? 70, 30. So 70% is simply the what you call this is what you call intermediate acting. Okay, then the Actrapid or short acting is 30% in this composition. Don't forget, this is a very important point that most people make mistakes. I'll repeat, the 70% is in this premixed insulins is basically what we call the intermediate acting, which is going to be, of course, protofen, in this case protofen, and there's also Actrapid. Actrapid is 30%, which is a short acting in the premixed regimen. So in this category, what you do, if this patient, of course, requires 30 units in 24 hours, so what you do, you divide this. If you're giving a premixed regimen for the patient, you divide this into 3 equal parts. So divide by 3. Last part, patient, I said divide by 4, because we're using what we call multiple injections. This patient, we're using what we call a premixed, and want to give it what we call a premixed, okay, BT aspect. So what we divide by 3, so we give out 10 units, isn't it? So 10 units, and also 10 units. So what you do basically is that the 2 parts, so 2 parts, okay, patient gets them in the morning. So the 2 parts, the patient gets the 2 parts in the morning. The last part patient gets in, that's at dinner, which is 18 hours in the evenings. So they'll get 20 units in the morning and 10 units in the evenings. So this is for the simple patient you put on what you call on the Actrapen, which is a combined or biphasic insulin. That's how you combine. Now I'm going to show you another calculation here. Very easy, so I need to understand this part. This is very important. Assuming you are a pharmacist working in the pharmacy, the doctor prescribes the drug for the patient. The doctor writes here Actrapen. Then the doctor writes 20 units AM, then 10 units PM. Then in the pharmacy, you don't have this combined, or you don't have the premixed insulin. What you have in the pharmacy, you have what you call individual. You have Actrapid, which is short acting, and the intermediate acting, which is protofen. How are you going to give the patient the drug? because this is the combined one. So this is how you convert now as a pharmacist. Now, let me say this way. We prefer, if the doctor puts patient on this BD regimen, you just also take it BD the way it is for the patient. Why am I saying that? Because multiple injections are difficult to monitor and it requires before meals monitoring, so that can be cumbersome, and some patients won't afford to check their sugars regularly because it's quite expensive. So basically what you do, also you give the same drugs, but you give it in the BD, but you give separate. How do you do? This is how you convert now. You write here AM and PM. Then you say the patient, the total dose of AM is getting how many? 20 units in the morning, and then PM they're getting how many? 10 units. So what you do, you know that in this 20 they're getting in the morning, 2/3 of it. So 2/3 of it is what you call protofen. As I said, intermediate acting is more because this is 70/30. So 2/3 is what you call protofen, or which means I'll use the word, if I want to, I'll use the word what you call intermediate acting. Then 1/3 in this aspect, 1/3 in this patient, 1/3 is what? Is the actrapid or short-acting insulin. This you get in the morning. So how, let's use calculator here. So basically I'm gonna do my 1/3, my 2/3. So times 20, I'm getting 13.3. So I can put 13.3 or just say 14 units. So the patient will get 14 units here in the morning of protofen, since you have got protofen in the pharmacy. And then 1/3 of it, so simply minus 14 minus what you call 20 is what? 6. So 6 units in the morning, this patient will get what would be short-acting insulin, which is known as what you call, in this case we have got actrapid per se. So I said 2/3 is protofen, which is known as intermediate acting. Okay? Then we have, I've gone 1/3 for this dose in the morning will be what? Short-acting, which is actrapid for this patient. Then the same thing happens also in the evening. In the evening, of course, again, you do your 2/3 here, of course, will be what? The protofen. And then 1/3 here, of course, will be what? The actrapid. Okay, so in this case, basically, you do simply your 2/3. Okay, then times 10 here, we have what called 7 units. I've just rounded off, so you're gonna, they get 7 units in the evenings, will be protofen, or which means this I'm calling it what you call intermediate acting. Then we've got also 1/3, which simply is just 3 of units, the 3 parts. So the 3 units here, remaining 3 units, will be what you call the actrapid or short-acting regimen. So this is how you see this patient here. We simply put the patient on a BD regimen, what the doctor put initially, but the doctor was using the combined already, which called the biphasic insulin. But in the pharmacy, we had the drug that are separate. So what I've simply done here is I've simply just divided them into this. So the patient will be getting, so 2/3 in the morning will be protofen, which is known as what we call intermediate acting. 1/3 will be short acting, which can be actrapid on another brands. Okay, then again you come to this part here, even the same thing like that. So this is how you convert the patient from this one to this one. You haven't changed anything, you just simply, this is called the split mix regimen, a BD for the patient. They're getting this one, of course, at around 8 hours breakfast time, 30 minutes before breakfast. Then this one also 18 hours, 30 minutes before a dinner at 18 hours. So that's what this patient will be getting. This is clear. I take this one to be clear. Then the next part I want to show you now, which is very important part I want to show you now, is this part. You can still want to do, so assuming that patient, of course, we had put 20 units AM and also 10 units, how many? PM. Okay, this is the combined aspect that patient was getting. Now, if you want, we can take it into what we call multiple injections. But as I said, the best way to do is to make it BD, as I explained earlier on just the page that we're from. Now, what you can do basically is simply you add the total, you add 10 plus 1, you get 30 units. Then 30 units, of course, you can divide into 4 equal parts. So the same we did like that one, into 4 parts, like we did the first one. That one, of course, this is called multiple injection aspect. So it means that this one, of course, this will be given before meals or with meals, these ones. Then the last quarter will be given at 23 hours. Okay, at 23 hours, this can be used any pH at 23 hours. That's the patient again. That's what you do in this one. You can still do that. But as I said, due to difficulties in monitoring, and this one, of course, quite expensive. That's why you prefer to giving BD as the way the doctor had initially prescribed. That's what I want you to understand. Now, I want you to show another thing that you do. Let's say we've got a patient here. So this patient, of course, is getting what you call getting basal insulin, and they've been getting NPH. NPH basically is called neutral portafine hexagon is simply the name of the doctor who discovered, of course, that time. So basically, then the patient has been getting how many? He's been getting let's say the patient has been getting 8 in the morning and also 8 in the evening. So total dose is 16 units of this NPH. This is the patient who's been getting this drug. Maybe this is a pre-diabetic patient who is only getting basal insulin. And then the patient complains, I'm a busy person, I just want to be, is it possible that I'm getting one injection? Because I'm getting 2 BD, I think it's really comes for me. So can you convert this one to a longer acting, because this is what we call intermediate acting. Of course, it's a basal insulin, but which can be given BD. You can give this one OD, of course, at 23 hours, but if you want to convert to longer acting insulin, there's a formula that we use. How do we do it? So this is what you do now. You do what you call your NPH dose, okay, for the times the conversion factor. Conversion factor is equal to a long-acting insulin. In this case, of course, we're going to call glargine, okay, glargine, okay. So conversion factor that is there we use is 0.3 to 0.8. This is the conversion factor. So let me give an example. This patient was getting how many? 16 units, right? Total for basal insulin. So I want to take this patient to a single dose, which is what called glargine, which is a longer acting, which they just need one injection. So while we convert there, I'll just multiply. I may even get 0.8. I'll get 0.8 times 16. What are we getting here? So I'm going to get my 0.8 times 16. I'm getting how many? 12.8, which is same as what? 13 units. So you see here, patient is getting how many? I was getting 16, but here I've come to what? To 13. Now the question may ask that, why do we use a conversion factor? This is because in the first case, the person was getting BD. If we give all of it here at once, the patient might likely to have what we call hypoglycemia. We want to avoid that. That's why we have to use the conversion factor, because we're giving this one at once. That can lead to what we call too much reduction in the blood, in the sugar. That can lead to hypoglycemia. The other reason why is because we don't know how the patient will react. That's why we have used these conversion factors here. This is important for me to understand. The other part I want to show you again, another calculation I want you to understand, because I want you to understand calculations today, because you've been crying for these calculations. Now, today is calculation time. So I want to show you another aspect that you do, what we call the insulin sensitivity ratio or factor. Okay? Ratio or factor or test. This is T. Insulin sensitivity test for a patient. So what we use here, basically, there are different rules that were used here. We want to see how sensitive the patient is to the insulin. That factor really helps us a lot, because we can use that factor to design a patient sliding scale of insulin, whereby they will be monitoring themselves at home. They can see in what range their sugar levels are. Then from there, they know how much of insulin they need to take. So this is what we do now. It's what we call the 1800 rule, and also the 1500 rule. If you're using rapid acting insulin, you use what we call this rule, the 1800 rule. If you're using the short acting, which means ultra-rapid, these short acting insulins, you can use what we call the 1500 rule, because the ultra-rapid or short acting insulins are common in Africa, and we have these a lot in Zambia, but other friends, they use more of rapid acting. That's why they use this rule. So what you do, basically, you get the 1800 divided by the patient total daily insulin requirement. Let's say the patient, of course, who is 80 kg patient, who requires how many? We said just by 2 here, we get 40 units, right? So 40 units this patient requires in 24 hours. You divide this 40 into that one. So what you're going to do, basically, you're just getting 1800 divided by 40. I get 45. So this 45, basically, I've gotten here is in these units, milligrams per deciliter. What this means is that for this patient who weighs 70 kgs, their sensitivity test ratio, meaning that for 1 unit of insulin, so 1 unit of insulin for this patient reduces their sugar levels by this factor, 45 milligram per deciliter. That's what it means here for this patient. I'll show it again. When I divide the 1800 by the total daily requirement for this patient, insulin, what I'll get is 45. The units are called milligram per deciliter. This it means that for this patient, it takes only 1 unit of insulin to reduce their sugar levels by 45 milligrams per deciliter. That's what it means for this patient. Now, if you're using other drugs like, let's say, short-acting insulin Actrapid, you are using what called the 1500 rule. So basically, I'm going to do my calculation here. 1500 divided by the total dose for this patient, of course, we said it's 40, so it's going to be 37.5, which is 38. So this patient, of course, here, because this rule will get 38 milligrams per deciliter. Meaning that for this patient, of course, if you're using short-acting or Actrapid, 1 unit of insulin is able to reduce their sugar levels by the factor of how much? 38 milligrams per deciliter. This is called insulin sensitivity test. Now, let me show you how you can make a sliding scale using this aspect here. We'll get this patient, of course, we're using, let's assume we have got a rapid-acting insulin. So you write your normal sugar levels, start here. As I said, the normal sugar levels fasting, of course, is what? We're using fasting here, 70 to what? 200. Okay? So you know this. Then here you write, here you get this part here, the last part here, again here. I'm going to write 101 here. Then I'm going to add this one, 45, because that's what this patient requires. So I'll make in space of 45. So I'll add 45 there. So I'm going to add 101 plus 45. I'll get 146. So 146. Then I'll get another one here. I'll get 147 here. 147 plus again 147, which is 147. We're adding plus 45, which is our factor there. I'm going to get 192. So I'm going to get 193 here. 193. We're adding here plus 45, which is factor we're using here. We're going to give what called 238. Let's go here, 239 plus. So we're going to get 239 plus 45. We're getting what, man? 284. Now this is how you make here point here. So this is called correction dose required for the patient. So you see here, this is patient steroid. I've done it for this patient. 70 here. This is the normal sugar levels. We said it's 70 to what? Let me say assume like 70 in this case. I'll use proper. Now this is just example. Of course, we said normal sugar levels for people with diabetes, of course, is 90. When they're 90 to what? To 130. That's our range there. So let me just use an example. Okay. So what we do basically here is that if the sugar levels in this range here means they don't require any insulin here. But if now, sorry, I used the other one here. But basically, this is how you go about. Now, if the sugar levels for this patient, of course, is in this range here, means they need what? They need an extra unit of insulin. So they need 1 unit of insulin here. If it's in this range, they need how many? 2 units of insulin. Meaning that to their daily requirement of insulin, they're just adding these ones here. So if the patient has been taking 10 units every time they eat before meals, they will need 10 plus this additional total 2, because the sugar levels, of course, will be in that range. So the patient at home will be just checking when their sugar levels are in this range. They know that, okay, in this range now, before I eat, sugar levels are in this range. Meaning that I need addition of how many? 3 units. So to their daily dose that you had to put a patient initially, they will add 3 units for them to bring their sugar levels in the normal range. This is called the insulin sliding scale. I'll explain again in simple terms. So the normal one, we say the target is 90 to what? To 130. Means you don't add anything. So here you change here. Let's just put 130 here. We're adding 130 here, not this figure. 130 here plus 45 here, we'll get what? 175. So the 175 here. So if it's in this range, the patient just needs addition of 1 unit to their daily insulin dose. This is called insulin sliding scale. This is how it comes with for the patient. Okay, so the last part now I want to show you now for the calculation part now, which I want you to see. This is the last part of calculation. Is this part we call this is the last part we call the insulin bicarbonate ratio. This is whereby you simply you adjust the dose of for patient insulin based on the sugar they're eating, how much carbohydrate contents they're eating in a meal. So what you do basically with this one, you use what called the 500 rule. This is called the 500 rule. The reason why they use 500 rule, they know that the hepatic function, when you eat, for it to have what called glucose output, is about 500 grams in a patient that can it makes in, basically in 24 hours. So they use this rule as the 500 rule. So what you do basically, this is the same thing that I said. This is called the insulin bicarbonate ratio. Okay, so you simply divide the 500 grams divide by patient daily. So let's say this patient, because we assume this patient requires 40 units in 24 hours. So you divide the 500 divided by the total daily patient's insulin that patient requires in 24 hours. So when I divide that 500 divided by the 40 here, what I'm getting here is 12.5, which is simply 13. So I'll write here 12.5. This one grams. Okay. So what this kind of means here, what it means basically here is that for this patient, if they're eating 12 grams, they need how many? 1 unit of insulin. So this patient, it means that their total daily dose of insulin, they need insulin for their every day. When they're getting 1 gram, 12.5 gram food, they're eating that food that is weighing this kind of 12.8, which contains sugar levels about 12.5 grams. What they need is that they need additional 1 unit to their everyday regimen. This regimen, and I repeat, this regimen is only applied to what we call rapid acting insulin. Let me say it again. This kind of conversion is good and works best for rapid acting insulin. Why? Because rapid acting insulin is close, or rather mimics, the physiological insulin secretion, the way your body secretes insulin when you eat something. So it's more close, so it's easier to use this with that aspect. So if a patient they're getting maybe say 25 grams here of starch, what they're eating, maybe glucose or maybe starch from meal, whatever, then they'll add how many? They'll add 2 units to their daily insulin requirements. That is how you need to do that. This is what we had. This ends our video on insulin calculation. Go through and watch part 1 if you didn't watch part 1, and then you can also watch part 2, and this is part 3. I want to say, if you've got questions and comments, just comment on our video below. We'll respond to you. We take our time and see the comments and see the videos. So please just comment whatever you want to comment, and then we'll respond to you. Enjoy and stay safe in this COVID era. God bless.